Well, my friends, for all of you that came for Mother's Day here, this was probably not the scripture passage you were quite expecting, I'm sure. And this is one of those troubles with scriptures for a Sunday morning sermon is they're always inevitably lifted out of context. And for any of you who've read Job, you know where this goes. Unfortunately, if his friends had just stopped here, it would be a much better book. It'd be a much shorter book. But we know that they eventually open their mouths because the other 50 or so chapters of Job are basically them talking. And they had been doing so well too, right? Job, to reach this point in the story, has endured deep and lasting trauma. He has lost all his children, all his livestock, and even his own health. Everything that defined Job, his family, his work, and his own strength have been robbed from him. When his friends, his neighbors, hearing all of this, come to see him, and even when they are a long way off, they can see what this has done to Job because they don't even recognize him anymore. I almost imagine them getting close and seeing him there at a distance and stopping and checking the road sign, making sure they have the address right, because this cannot be the man they have known, because he is unrecognizable. And how do they respond? They start weeping loudly, tearing their clothes and throwing dirt over their heads. Not even able to fathom what they see, they instead sit with Job, sit in that heap of ashes next to their friend as he scrapes his sores with broken pottery. And nobody says a word for 7 days and 7 nights. And how I wish they had stayed silent. Instead, when Job utters a need in the next chapter, and this is the remarkable thing, that silence, that presence that the friends offer is what allows Job to finally speak, to finally name his need. And what he utters is heartbreaking. He curses his birth. He questions why God would give life at all. And then, instead of hearing, receiving that need, his friends open their mouths and they prove they were never his friends in the first place. Our series, I've Been Meaning to Ask, poses tough questions, the real questions needed for us to be beloved community. And this one for today is hard. What do you need? I'm going to say it right now. We hate this question. To stand before hurt and suffering and helpless floundering, to not be able to do what comes so naturally to all of us. And of course, what I mean by that is, what do we love to do when something is wrong? Oh yes, I heard it. We love to fix it. We love to correct. We love to save. To stand there instead and ask this question invites the world as we know it to come to an end. Job's friends cannot ask this question. They rush to lean on old certainties, not understanding, not seeing that these old truths no longer match the reality of Job's life. Asking, what do you need, invites us to see that each person is unique, and so each need is unique. And actually caring for someone else, it can't be done with platitudes or one-size-fits-all answers. It takes receiving another's truth. even as that truth might shatter our own. Now, you might be surprised, some of you, to hear me say that we hate this question. You might say, I'm really good at asking that question. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? But I think for many of us, it's a lot like how we ask, how are you? You know what I mean? Is any of us really asking, how are you, because we want to have an in-depth answer about how another person is doing? No, this is perfunctory. How are you? And do you notice what we do? We say, how are you? And we already expect the answer. I'm fine, I'm good, how are you? And we're already moving because we expect that answer is going to be coming, and so we can quickly say, good, or fine, and just keep on going. But if someone were to actually answer that question honestly, what would that do to us? I think we'd break for a moment. We'd kind of stumble. We'd probably the words that would already be leaving our mouths would be, I'm good too. I'm fine. Have a good day. We wouldn't know how to respond if someone actually answered. And I think the same is true of what do you need. I think most of the time we expect they'll say, oh, I'm good. Nothing. I'm fine. And even if we do start off right, just like Job's friends, now it may not be rending our clothes or weeping or throwing dirt around. Maybe our response would be in the more Midwestern fashion. Any of you from the Midwest know what I'm talking about, which is if any trouble strikes any family whatsoever, what do? Oh, I heard it. Casseroles. Casseroles, you bring food. As we all know, the Midwesterner's canvas is the casserole dish. And what we put in there is our true art. We're going to fill that fridge with lasagnas and hot dishes because I think there's this secret belief in every Midwesterner's heart that if we feed you enough, there won't be any room for any of that bad stuff. It'll have been forced out by lasagna and casserole. But even then, at some point, we inevitably open our mouths and ruin everything. And this is even supported by this story we find in Job. There are some who look at this tale of these friends of Job coming to go see him and do not read it as they're there to actually even offer him sympathy. There's a thought that when they first glimpse Job on his heap, covered with sores, it announces to them what they already believe, that there sits an evil man. Yes, they think to themselves, this proves that Job must be bad. All that crying and tearing and throwing dust might be them recognizing and performing rites for one who is about to die and deserves to do so. They might have sat there for 7 days because they thought Job was going to keel over at any moment. They thought this was his just punishment because they were certain of their view of the world. Good things happen to good people. Bad things only happen to bad people. So if bad things happen to Job, he must be bad. Now, I don't think we necessarily do this per se. I don't think I hope at least that we've largely moved past this of assuming if something bad happens to someone, they did something bad, but we kind of still do what Job's friends do, but kind of in a different way. Have you noticed this? When something bad happens after the casserole dishes, what do we inevitably start doing? We start asking questions. Do you notice this? We begin investigating what happened. How did this happen? Tell me more. And of course, the real question behind all of this, why? Why did this happen? Because I think in our heart of hearts, like Job's friends, we believe the world is an orderly place, governed by laws of causality. Good happens to the good. Bad happens to the bad. Oh, sure, we might deny it. But I think again, in that heart of hearts, we think if I'm just good enough, not saintly, none of us are necessarily aiming to be a saint because bad things happen to saints. No, we aim just to be decent. And our belief is as long as we're decent, this won't happen to us. And as long as we can crack the code, if we can determine why this happened to someone else, we can be safe. Or assure ourselves that something they did, something they ate, the people they hung out with, or something they believed led to what happened to them. Something that we can look at and say, I'm not like that, so that won't happen to me. And if we don't start asking questions, again, as I mentioned before, that other thing we love to turn to, fixing. If we're honest, how many of us have a terrible habit of trying to fix, trying to save, trying to correct? Maybe we begin with those empty platitudes. Well, there must be some blessing or plan or divine will in all of this. You just need to be sure of that. And we see this again because when we offer these quick fixes, our empathy suddenly starts running out. I've seen this before. From church people who are there at the moment of grief with those hot dishes, those casseroles, but then 6 months down the road, I will hear them chatting with one another, and they say things that are almost unbelievable. They'll say, well, I don't understand why she's still so sad. It's been 6 months. She just needs to get over it. I mean, her husband's been dead for a while now. Can't she just move on? We don't know what to do when it can't be fixed, when the hurt is still there. It's a reminder to us that maybe the things we think are true, those old certainties, they might be wrong. And that's scary. And Job's life is a challenge. Everything has gone wrong. No wonder his friends spend so long trying to justify the world as they know it, the truth as they believe it. They spend 50 chapters basically trying to tell Job over and over again, admit that you're bad. Admit that you're evil, because if you do, that means this won't happen to me. And then we can fix it. You just need to be good, and good things will happen to you. Stop being bad. And Job's reality is scary for them, because Job sits there in the ash heap, picking at his sores with broken pottery, saying, I have done nothing wrong. I don't know why this happened. And the platitudes don't work. The quick fixes don't work. They can't save him. They can't correct him. All their defenses are crumbling because of the bitter reality of the man before him. And all they have to do, what would have made this book so much shorter, is if they had just asked, "What do you need?" But that's a hard question to ask because we don't know what answer we'll get. Because it's probably not going to be an easy answer. It's probably not one that has quick fixes. It's not something that we assumed. And we might feel helpless because it might be things that are beyond our ability to address right here, right now, in the moment, in the short term. And we see this, right? When people are hungry, we are more than willing to feed them. If people are naked, yes, we'll give them clothes. If they're cold, let's get them someplace warm. But do you notice? We don't always, even in those moments, like to ask, "What do you need?" Because what if they say, "What I need? I need this broken world to be better. That's why I'm hungry. The system is wrong. That's why I'm naked. This world is governed by injustice. That is why I am cold. That is why I am sick. That is why I am alone." And how do we fix that? No wonder we struggle with the big questions of justice. Those questions of racism, sexism, all those isms. Because there's no quick fix. There's no platitude. There's no amount of lasagna in the fridge to force that out. And when we finally ask that question, it might mean their truth shatters ours. But that is the reality. Because our God has made us all so differently, so uniquely, and this means that our needs are unique. We can't assume. There's no autopilot for love. We have to ask that question. What do you need? And it's risky. And it's vulnerable. But caring for other people, which is needed in a community that wants to say it is beloved, requires risk and vulnerability because there is nothing safe with love. Not what we think we know, not what seems solid or certain. To love is to hold this risk. To ask this question is to invite this risk. And God invites us to do this. This is the thing I love about this story. Job is a tough read. But if you pay attention, there's something remarkable. Because Job, in that silence, voices his need. He says, "Why are we even all alive if this is all we get?" And it takes 50 chapters to get there. But when his friends finally shut up, do you know what is remarkable? God answers Job's question. Maybe not with an answer any of us, including Job, would like. But he does hear the need, and God does answer. Imagine if we were willing to do that, to take the risk, to hear a truth that might shatter our world. Because maybe that world needs to be shattered so we can build something holy, something more beloved, a true community. Amen.